stand for the posting of the colors.
Post the colors. Present arms. Order arms. While you're standing, join me with the flag salute, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
While you're still standing, remove your hats, please. And Father, we pray thankfulness for what you've given us. Father, you've given us a day of remembrance for veterans. And Father, we want to thank you for that privilege to have that and what it stands for. And Father, we want to ask that everything we do today, what we say, what we do, what we hear, may be of the whole essence that's honoring you. All this work that's been put together to put this on, Father, may it be that the whole aim is to honor you when it's all said and done. In Jesus' name pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jean and Lily, and let's give Lily another round of applause. I want to welcome everybody here today. A little bit ago, I was looking at all the desserts that had been brought in for refreshments, and I thought, oh gosh, I get to take 4 or 5 things home. Wrong. So it's wonderful to have you all here today. I would like to read something to you. Veterans Day honors veterans of the armed forces and those killed in their country's wars. The observance originated in 1919 on the first anniversary of the 1918 armistice that ended World War I and was known as Armistice Day. It was commemorated in 1921 with the burial of an unknown soldier from World War I at Arlington National Cemetery in Arlington, Virginia. Other countries that had lost soldiers in the conflict, such as Italy and Portugal, conducted similar ceremonies that year. The previous year, unknown soldiers had been interred at Westminster Abbey in London, England, and at the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, France. Veterans Day is celebrated Friday, November the 11th. November 11 became an official national holiday in the United States in 1938. In 1954, the name was changed to Veterans Day to honor those who had served in all U.S. wars. Ceremonies are held each year at the Tomb of the Unknowns and floral tributes are placed on the graves of servicemen and women and at memorials throughout the country. Naturalization ceremonies have become an important part of the day's activities. And John F. Kennedy once said, "As we express our gratitude to those who have served, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter the words, but to live by them." I want to thank all the veterans in the audience today, and a little bit later we'll introduce those people to you. And Jean?
Okay, a little bit about Veterans Day and what our veterans stand for and stuff. There's no way I can include everything all at the same time, but I do want to say this. When you young people, especially when you look at the military, you got the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Army, and all these ranks, and right now they're having trouble filling all the ranks and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of things go on to there, but when the military is called into action, when it's necessary for the military to show up, every single time the United States is called, you know, like World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and all the other places in between. There was a lot of little ones you never even heard about that some of our men had went over to different places. In each of the cases, the United States was not there to conquer and gain acquisition of somebody's land. What we did was go there to free other people, free the other people. In many cases, we did what? We rebuilt them too when we were done. I mean, it wasn't a matter that we just left it in shambles. We rebuilt it. And a lot of those cases, some of those countries, which were very evil in intent, became allies. So the intent of our military was that we defend our country, and many times we're called because somebody calls and says, "Hey, can you help us out? We're being overrun and we need some help. We can't take this." And so we would send our men and women over. Some of these cases, a good argument could be made that was not necessary, or why did we spill and lose so many of our people when it wasn't our cause? But in some of those situations, it's better that fighting took place there instead of here. Because sometimes if you don't stop it, it magnifies itself and it gets worse and worse, and so we'll be in front. We have enough things going on here. When all those veterans in here, raise your hand, guys. Everybody that was a veteran, raise your hand. Okay. Each one of us, when we made an allegiance, we said we would help defend this country against foreign enemies and domestic. I hope that latter doesn't come into play sometimes. That would be sad as all get out. But we are veterans. And you know what? Every single one here is a supporting cast. We've been a lot of our veterans group. There's been some that when they pass away said, "Well, we don't want any honors because we really weren't that important. We didn't do that much." You know how many are important? Every single one of them. And I know that if there wasn't the supporting cast for those on the front lines couldn't stay there. It takes from the clerk to the supply unit to the distribution, it takes, I don't remember the numbers, it was something like 10% on the front or less than that.
That or maybe 15,
Yeah.
10 to 15.
Yeah, it's very small that ever see action. The others are helping keeping them there and supporting them there in a lot of different roles. One thing that's always marveled, if there's somebody in this room can explain to me how without the use of computers in World War II, they were able to get, I worked for the post office, get a letter across some silly little island to some guy and someplace over in Europe, and now we have trouble getting it from Kansas City back to Omega. And I delivered 35 years. Okay, that's amazing that the network of being able to supply supplies, not just letters, but ammunition, food, and everything necessary across the globe. I don't know how they did that, other than they had people willing to stand in the gap on the front lines here at home and keep that going, and it did. So that's just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
And with that, we're going to go around and have each veteran introduce themselves. And I'm going to save the first one for last because he's our speaker. So I have, say your name and your branch of service and whatever you'd like to share.
I'm Dale Coleman. I was in the Army. There wasn't much to talk about, really. I mean, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to go. And yeah, I just had stuff ate at me, over the years, because I know what I'm going for. So, but
He's kind of modest here, isn't he? He served in Vietnam, and he's part of the Tet Offensive. And there is a book about his unit. Now, let me see. I gotta find you. I know Alvin is one.
Alvin Mosky, I was in the National Guard and got called up in Johnson with the 69th Infantry Brigade in Kansas, and I was one of the first 13 to go out of the Guard units to go to Vietnam, and spent 10 months there and come home, and I guess I retired.
Both Dale and Alvin did oral histories for us when we did the Vietnam Project.
Roger McNally. I served in U.S. Navy. I was in the Naval Air, coaching more planes and boats. I did for 3 years.
Thank you.
Lee Abbott, I was in the United States Navy. I served over in Vietnam on the USS Oklahoma City. It was a guided missile cruiser along the coast of Vietnam.
Thank you.
Tim Morgan, I served in the United States Army in 72 and 3 in the infantry unit.
Thank you.
Don Mose served in 65, 67, served in Korea, the mountains of Korea in a support battalion.
Thanks. Scott Cottrell, U.S. Army, 88 to 92, Operation Provide Comfort and Desert Storm.
And those are some of the conflicts that we need to start documenting better.
Ellie Reese, U.S. Army, has all sorts of things up in those.
Born Reese, retired active duty Army 26 years. I was a maintenance supervisor that just recently retired.
Tom Tessendorf, 25 years retired National Guard, Army Nurse Corps, Operation Enduring Freedom in Djibouti, Africa.
My name's Robert Collins. I did 20 years in the Army. I served in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and 2 tours in Operation Iraq and Freedom. I was on tanks and I got to blow a lot of stuff up.
You had the support line move somewhere behind me. Okay.
Ryan Bates, Vietnam 66 to 72, Korea 73 to 75.
Thank you.
I'm Gene Gilstorf. I was in the Army same years as Tim Morgan. We went in on the Buddy plan, and I served 3 years in the 96th Army Airborne Ranger, and I'd do it again.
Thank you. Let's see, are there any veterans over in this area? Okay, I want to thank all of the veterans. Let's give the veterans a round of applause. As I listened to them explain where they were at, I think each of them on their own could tell quite a story. My cousin sent me this morning. I asked about some Iraqi vets that he knows, and he says a lot of them carry a lot of emotional scars from their service. Generally, they deal with things, but it's never far from their past experiences. And I would guess that's true of all the veterans here today, is that you deal with it, but it's not far from you. With that, I'd like to introduce Dennis Droge. He is going to talk to you a little bit about Operation Joint Endeavor, and I'm going to let him explain his military service to you, because he can do it so much better than I can. So, Dennis?
Thank you. I did my 20 years in the National Guard, got in 66, got mobilized in 68. Didn't go to Nam because my orders didn't tell me to go. Got out of service for 13 years, went back in 83, switched from artillery to military history detachment, which some of you have probably never heard of, but you'll know a little bit more about it today. They started in World War II, and I did my 20 years in the Guard. And that's my, I guess that makes, with a little bit, a couple of weeks in Korea, and we'll talk about Bosnia. I spent about 8 months on that mobilization. So I figure I wore my boots 4 years and 4 months, if you figure all my time up from active duty. Okay, I think I like to have a map and know where in the heck somebody's talking about. I've got 38 maps here, and I think that's one for every other person. And why don't we start those out first?
I'm gonna let you do that.
You're gonna let me, she's gonna let me do it.
Yeah. For some reason, we're not.
I'll come back with something. Why don't you take those and hand them over your shoulder? Here you got some more. The 10 per sheet here. Grab some of those and hand them over. Every other person ought to have it. If you get too many, well, you can do something different. How's that? There's a couple here that I think are doing that. I'll get them back here. Sharon, look, I'll let you share it. We're going to do this last, remember? Okay. Yeah.
You're good. I got it ready.
Okay, before we start my presentation, I have written at the top of my sheet of paper, every service person has a story. There are overlaps. Sometimes we overlap with some of our buddies, but everybody has a separate story because you're the one wearing your boots. So if you ever get a chance to tell it, you know, there's like, they have interview programs here at this museum. I think they've interviewed, where's she at? Where's Burgess at? Well, they've had a lot of interviews on this, so what I'm saying is be part of it if you can, because you got a story to tell. And thanks for your service. Did I say service persons when I said this? Anymore, you gotta say, you can't say servicemen, you gotta say service persons. Right? I had 2 daughters and a son in Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia, so I know what it's like to have females in the service. Okay, what we're gonna do, I had to work a little bit on this. Am I too loud? Am I doing okay? It's been 26 years since I had this deployment, so I had to go back and look at some notes. And I'll get out of the way after we start the video here at the end. What we're gonna do this in 4 parts. We're gonna tell you just a tip of the iceberg on these things of what a military history detachment duties are. We're going to give you an idea what Joint Endeavor was, why it happened, and then we're going to show some photos that we have collected from that operation, and then at the last, I'm going to, if there's any burning question, we'll let you ask a question, because I probably won't cover it. I'll probably leave something out. So what is a military history detachment? The precursor to a military history detachment started in World War II. Am I talking too fast? You can understand me? Okay. I can't read it now with the lights off.
Well, tell her back there. I didn't pick one.
Thank you. They consist of a 3-people unit, a major, an E6, and an E7. And They even have a unit number. We had a unit number, ours was WVL9AA. That's how it put down to, but you had to be attached to somebody because you didn't have a mess hall or nothing. So that's the reason they call you a detachment. We did oral histories. We saved documents of the operation, photos, artifacts, different things to tell the story of the operation. And the questions and the interviews were designed to find out requested information about the role of the unit or the mission. It wasn't like a social where you're probably going to sit down and just tell what you thought about yourself in the military. But at the end of every interview, we usually give the person a chance to say, is anything you'd like to add? There's 4 military history detachments were mobilized for this operation. One that I was in, the 102nd out of Topeka, 130th out of North Carolina, the 90th out of Georgia, and a unit from Illinois that I failed to have their number. When I was on duty, there was 1 full-time military history detachment in the U.S. Army out of Fort McPherson. All the others were National Guard and Reserve. So that meant anytime there's an activity in the world, they sent some of the mobilized National Guard or reservists to fill the slots. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about why this thing had to happen. And if you listen to the news today, mankind can't get along. It's happening in Ukraine, it's happening in Israel and Gaza, it just goes on. And this wasn't in my presentation, but the historians that went back 3,000 or 3,500 years, and I think there's only been about 50 years, and that's all, not all at once, when somebody wasn't fighting somebody in the world. There's always somebody beating on somebody, so let's call that good for that. It was a NATO mission following a failed UN mission. The United Nations never got their act in order. They actually turned genocide into ethnic cleansing to make it sound a little nicer. I mean, they were, okay, estimated 100,000 people died in this conflict from the fighting of the warring factions. It was the Serbs, the Croats, and the Bosniaks. The Bosniaks are the Muslim faction that went in about AD 400. They migrated to this part of the world and they ended up having a lot of people there. One of the biggest genocides, and I think this might have been the one that tipped the scales to get the powers to be to do this, was in Srebrenica in July of '95, the Serbian army came over and took 8,000 to 9,000 men and boys from a safe haven of Srebrenica that the UN had, took them out in the woods, killed them, and buried them in a mass grave. Pretty sucky, isn't it? And as far as I know, to this day, they're still pulling them up. Families want to know where their loved ones are, and they're reburying them. It's a major operation. The warring factions were brought together in Dayton, Ohio. There's a post outside their military post, and the presidents of Bosnia, Serbia, and Croatia were brought together in November of '95, and thus they call it the Dayton Accords, is what brought these warring factions together, and that let NATO go in and stop this stuff that was going on. The military, the NATO forces, and other forces, and if you look at that map I showed you, on one side of it, it kind of shows you the individuals that were, the countries that provided troops for this operation. They accomplished a major hurdle because this meeting was in November, and they wanted the military to be in place the 17th of January. The military did it because that was their orders. But there was a problem. Resupply. I think Gilsdorf talked about how supply goes on. Well, there wasn't no movement. There was no parts for the vehicles. And you'll see this bridge, when we get to this Sava River Bridge, there's a term in the military called cannibalization. What you do, you park a vehicle over here and you take all the parts off of it to keep the others going. And that was really happening big time because they didn't have any parts to replace on them. Tuzla Air Base, Bosnia was operation headquarters of all the forces, and the 1st Armored Division was in charge. It's kind of interesting, they took Abrams tanks to Bosnia, and there wasn't no bridges over there that could hold anything like that, so you'll see why in a little bit what they did. They had to set up a separate place in Kaposvar, Hungary, Tazar Air Base, because the headquarters of Heidelberg, Germany was just too far away from Bosnia to be the headquarters, because it was called Headquarters Forward, and that was what the reason we had to, I was the second part of my duty was to go up to Tazar, Hungary and serve the rest of my tour of duty up to 8 months. The Sava River Float Bridge is what we're going to start this movie out with it a little bit. It was put in by the 502nd Engineer Company of the Army, and you see this bridge, how long it's going to be. That wasn't one bridge unit. They had to bring bridge units from everywhere. The river was at flood stage. They normally anchor bridges on the banks. Too much distance. They had to have 7 or 8 engineer boats holding this thing in place while the current was against it. Okay. There's a guy by the name of Donald Finney. He was in charge of landmine identification. On the 26th of January, they had come up with 3,420 mine fields, not mines, mine fields. By the 11th of April, it was up to 4,100. Now, landmines are not just dangerous to soldiers and vehicles, they're dangerous to horses, cows, sheep, and goats, and that country had a lot of them over there. So you think what happens if there's a horse wandering across the field? And they were working on getting them located and taken care of. And I won't tell you about the process, but when they got done, they proofed them. What they did is they took a tank that was like a joystick, you know, like a toy tank. You could be over here somewhere, and they backed it like this across the minefield until they covered every square foot of that minefield with that tank, so they get the personnel mines that were missed by the people who were working on it. So the danger in Bosnia was the landmines and the people that didn't want to comply with the Dayton Accords, and they figured there's maybe 400 or 500 people wandering the countryside that would willing to be a sniper. But how do you solve something like that? Well, the convoys could be no less than 4 vehicles. And each convoy had to have one crew-served weapon. An M60 machine gun, a 50 caliber, an automatic grenade launcher. So if you want to take a pop shot at somebody, you're going to have some firepower coming back at you, right? Okay. And another thing about mines, if you don't drop it, you don't pick it up. A ballpoint pen can be made into a mine, guys, ladies. You punch that button and blow your hand off, plastic shrapnel in your eyes. So that was one of the rules or laws that we did. If you didn't drop it, you don't pick it up, and you didn't get off the side of the road because you might step right on a landmine. And they found, where we went to mess hall, they found a landmine about 10 foot off the pathway where we went to mess. The good thing they had a wire fence there so we didn't cross it. Okay, so what did these people that you see on your list, what did they do to stop this thing from happening? They set up zones of separation to keep these people separated. They collected the weapons of war, rifles, tanks, artillery, whatever it was, and they set up checkpoints to stop the movement of these weapons and explosives. And I'm going to ask you one question, the audience, because in doing oral history interviews, I had quite a few of them because that was part of my job, and one of them was interviewing a Cobra chopper pilot. And when he first started flying these missions, right, the end of January, going down these mountains, some of it was daytime, some of it was night. When he first started doing this, the whole countryside was black. Because with 100,000 people killed and everybody being refugees and everything, it was a mixed up country. And a little later, the lights came on. You know, he'd fly at night and there'd be lights out there. And pretty soon he'd be driving down these mountain valleys and the kids and the parents were waving at him. Okay, what does that tell you about the success of the NATO mission at this stage? Anyone want to answer that? Is it working? I think it's working, isn't it? If the lights go on and people are waving at you, that's the way I've thought about it, and that's just the one interview. That guy was pretty happy with what he saw to be waved at by kids and family when he's flying these missions. Okay, we're going to try some photos here. This was put together by a guy in Hiawatha about 25 years ago, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, one thing, the only way to get to Bosnia was over this float bridge we're going to show you. Because these warring factions, in their infinite wisdom, blew every bridge across the Sava River. You couldn't get across. And this was at flood stage. So this is what the engineers put up. Welcome to Bosnia, Korea, Task Force Eagle, over the Salva, sir. You know, we're ready to go. Linda's gonna, oh, Linda, hey, she's the person here. Go ahead, Linda.
I'll try. Okay, this thing.
She's learning how to use the stick here.
No, it really doesn't. There, okay. There.
She says it's okay, we're gonna move on. Just see the center of the bridge? This next picture's gonna show up better. We don't need to stop it, Linda, there it is. They just, in their infinite wisdom, they had to blow the bridge up, right? You can't get across that bridge. I don't even think, what's his name that has a motorcycle, used to jump the Grand Canyon, I don't know. Okay, this is the Salva River Bridge with the engineer boats holding in place. And that's a float bridge. That's not any structure, it's floating on the water like a boat. And it's kind of an interesting bridge to cross, because when you're heavy, you move the boat down a little bit, but it's called a float bridge. And if you were in the news, read the news at that time, this was a major, major operation to get that bridge in place. We're ready.
Always takes a little while for it.
Yeah, just another truck on the bridge. And by the way, you're obligated to put your loaded magazine. Sergeant Walls, Command Sergeant Major, he was the guy with the engineers that helped put the bridge in place. He was proud that he got to turn the last latch. And when you hit the shore of Bosnia, he was obligated to put your magazine in your rifle, a loaded magazine. That was part of the rules of engagement. Keep going there. The kids everywhere greeted us, you know, when the convoys come, they come out to say hello. That's how they put up hay in Bosnia. Kind of interesting. This is not a dreary picture, it's a dreary countryside, folks. That's how that looked at this time. I was in Tuzla about 4 weeks before I could see the mountains on each side. That's a Bradley fighting vehicle at one of the checkpoints. This is an engineer bridge. They put that over a gap. Just a soldier, Sergeant Green, that's myself in front of one of those many destroyed buildings. Stop it here. I said the 2-minute rule on a convoy. If we're gonna stop for 2 minutes, we got out, bailed out of have I been standing in people's way? Okay, we bailed out of the vehicle, set up a perimeter defense, because we didn't know whether somebody's gonna take a pop shot at us. And you can't see it here, but that Humvee with a crew serve weapon is in that, either behind us or in front of us. And he's got a tour on that thing, so if somebody wants to try something, it wouldn't make them too happy. We're ready, Linda. More kids. And we'll talk more about the kids when we get downtown Tuzla. This is something that they wouldn't have been able to do before the UN was in there, right? That's kind of one of the pictures of it. We lived in 12-man or 10-man tents at Tuzla Air Base. They didn't have barracks enough for us, so we started on January 19th, and it was a cool winter, so I remember one time my thermometer said 12 degrees hanging on the outside of the tent. We did have heaters. We shut them off at night because we didn't want to have guys have fire guards. We'd rather sleep all night in a sleeping bag. Let's keep going here, Linda. Thank you. All the furniture I had was a cardboard box, and this is John Rule from the 130th, North Carolina. I'm crying, I want to go home. Anyway, this is Major Yusakevich and John Rule from the 130th. Every unit had a major and 2 enlisted. Writing a letter home. John Shaven. I talked to him just yesterday with a text message. This is where you have to have all them places wherever you go, right? The latrines. 24/7. Camera. By the way, we still had cameras that were using film. They were in the process of going digital anymore. They're all digital. I've never been anywhere in my life where you can see 3 inches of snow on barbed wire. Can you? In Kansas, did anybody ever see 3 inches of snow sitting on a barbed wire fence? No, sir. But there's no wind there. See the snow on those wires? It makes them look like they're big even, don't it? This is at Tuzla Air Base headquarters where the 1st Armored Division was set up. We had our office in that building. You can't see the building, but we was taking it out the upper window. Tent where we live. It looks, it's a pretty good snowstorm there. Like I say, I had an earlier picture which showed the phones were all out in the open. And we started getting showers. This is a water bladder. And we didn't have any showers the first 2 or 3 weeks. Did no laundry. We did our laundry with bottles of water because that's all we had. One of the UN trucks left over, I guess, is helping us out. I don't know if you understand a water bladder. It's a plastic thing. When you fill it with water, it expands. You can haul it pretty small when you don't have water in it. I've shown a lot of pictures here because this wasn't necessarily designed for you all today. So, this was put together by a guy in Hiawatha about, like I said, 25 years ago. But I'm trying to give you a feel for what we as soldiers were over there.
What's this vehicle doing?
What's that vehicle? I have no idea what it's doing. I probably didn't have any idea when I was there what it was doing. Looks different. Okay, force protection. After we were there a while, because we talked about snipers and things, those sandbags are supposed to stop bullets from passing through the tents. When we first got there, we ate MREs for about 3 or 4 weeks before they got the mess halls established. That's a guard at the gate. This is the front gate. Okay, would you stop that in there, please? Gelsdorf gave a prayer in this thing, and this is in front of the All Faiths Chapel at Tuzla Air Base, Bosnia. And I think there's some pretty blessed are the peacekeepers, and I think that kind of choked me up once in a while when you think that we were there doing what the Beatitudes say to do, be peacekeepers, right? That's what the whole thing was about, was being a peacekeeper. And this is where the Catholic, Jews, Muslims, whatever religion there was of anybody in the military could worship at this place, right here. And you always get an hour off for worship, so I made sure I got my hour off every week. And sometimes you worked, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, even on a peacekeeping mission. A couple of choppers going overhead. John Rule, the one I talked to just about, Shane Woodall from the 130th. I know a lot of tents. I must be selling tents. Oh, more showers. This is more showers. Hey, they come up and got a better deal. And by the way, I told you there's service persons today, men and women. There were a lot of women in the service helping out with this thing, so they got to have their private shower. Thank God, right? Okay. Somebody walking down the lane. I think this is where the landmine was found off the side. We flew the Candace flag. Major Dolan and myself, we put the Candace flag up. And this flag, if you want to see it, it's in the museum in Seneca. We got a letter of authenticity. It's not no big deal, but what the heck? Why not fly Candace flag, huh? It's above the 1st Armored Division headquarters, Tuzla Air Base, Bosnia. Hey, right now, look at the frost on the wood, on the trees. We're getting ready. I told you the Russian brigade came in and was part of the peacekeeping mission. And here they're starting to arrive with their airborne vehicles. And we were at that point, checkpoint sharp. A unit from Vicenza, Italy, an American unit was manning this point, and they gave it up for the Russians to come in and take care of this checkpoint. What you're seeing is airborne vehicles, Russia airborne vehicles being parked there. Ate lunch with them, sat down beside them. We even interviewed one. We'll show that picture in a little bit. The commander of the Russian brigade. We weren't speaking Russian either. We had an interpreter. Okay, thank you, Linda. All over there, I told you about 100,000 people getting killed. This is one of the little villages or colonies, or what do you want to call it, that you'll see is destroyed, and that's just all over the place. Like I said, 100,000 people were killed. They just did monstrosity. It's terrible. I wrote in one of my letters, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I said 1,000 pictures wouldn't do justice here. That might be overemphasizing, but it tells you a point, doesn't it? Okay. That's the name of the town. I can't pronounce that. That's in their language. This shows you that they blew them up. It's kind of hard to live in them places. The mountains there were not really tall, but okay, we want to stop here a little bit. What's the significance of this picture is these kids are downtown Tuzla and they're playing, which is awful hard to do when there's a war going on. The kids miss out on a lot of playtime when they can't go out. And another place we're going to show, there's this one mama had landmines in their yard, and she had to tell her kids where they were because there was so many landmines, you just couldn't flip a switch and have them gone. There were just so damn many of them. Okay. I have that guy's name in my script, but I can't go look everything up. There they are. What are they doing, huh? Making snowmen just like people do here in the United, or kids do here. And I asked the mother to get in the picture. She says, "Oh, I'm not a kid."
That you?
That's me, downtown Tuzla, Bosnia. And I think one of the next pictures is going to be, there it is, you can pause here. The Army, I told you, got so far ahead of itself, no supplies. We went downtown Tuzla to a warehouse to get whatever it took to keep the valves, whatever it took to keep the barracks going or whatever they needed. And they were paying in Deutschmarks. One was an Air Force person and the other was an Army, and they had enough money to pay for the parts when they went downtown. So we went downtown with our rifles, magazines in our rifles, and went shopping. I've never done that before, so we're ready to go. Okay, this is a sad situation. On that wall are 67 people that were killed, and there were 200 wounded. They were downtown Tuzla having coffee at the square, and somebody lobs a mortar round in there. And that makes it pretty sucky when you're that close together, family, friends, you know, just let's think about this a little bit, that you're living in Bosnia and they're having some war, not Bosnia, but Omega. Could be like one of those little towns in another country, you know, people, it sucks, okay? She said she hit play, there it is. I don't know what these things are, but I think we're going to another one of the units. It might be Lukovac, Bosnia, I think, with Division Rear. I learned a lot about the military. This is interesting. These soldiers put it up, they call themselves Poksahani, Camp Poksahani, and the next one will show you a little more. Okay. Hill City, I can't read the mileage, but this soldier kind of figured out how far it was home. And you got some others. Somebody put on here, Hanoi. What the heck did he do that for? I don't think he came from Hanoi, but that's how far it was, I guess, 1,000 miles. You have to have a little humor, right? That's the humor part of it. Thank you. Kind of gives you an idea. Yeah, what we're seeing here is going to see the JAG section. And I never realized this before, but whenever the U.S. Army has an operation, whether it's Reforger in Germany or wherever it is, and they damage fences, buildings, horses, cows, they go out and pay the farmers for the damage. And I guess that helps the public, whatever you want to call it. And so the next picture, you go ahead there, the JAG section that went out in the countryside and paid the farmers. So you're seeing countryside of Bosnia. Told you about sheep, goats. They raise a lot of sheep. We're stopped in this village and the JAG section is paying up. You can see this is just another damage. I never went hungry. I always carried a spoon in my helmet there. Show a lot of hole there, don't we think? Okay. This is a beautiful countryside. There was a young soldier from the Queens of New York that she saw this and she says, I hope someday I can come back here when this is over with, because you can see these little villages simmering into the distance, you know, on them, and it was just a beautiful place to be. Hay stacks out in the open. You can see the mountainside. We're going to get to see a little church in Serbia, I think, here. Just some more. The guy on the right is the JAG officer doing the paying. It's legal section of the military. That's another one of the guys that Gilsdorf was talking about having to support the whole thing. There's a little church in Serbia. We got a little bit into Serbia when we were on some of our convoys. Go ahead. Checkpoint. I told you they set up checkpoints to keep the warring factions from passing and separating them and taking their weapons away. There's one of your Abrams tanks set up. This is the convoys. This is a staging area for getting ready to go on a convoy. They're getting lined up. Hey, I told you, there's a guy hauling something in his horse cart. Another, I think it's a Bradley maybe, I'm not sure what that is. I think we may be coming to Camp Rumbaugh. This is where the medical brigade was located. And one of the concerns they had there, with the mountains being so close around, they was afraid a sniper might take a pop shot at somebody. Just a mountainside. They had no snow removal the whole time I was there, and we was on a convoy once, and this British vehicle did about a slip, and he could have went 100 foot off the cliff. You talk about slowing down. He stopped, went from 25 or 30 to about 15, because that'd be a pretty big. Here we are. This is a Russian, charge of the Russian brigade. I don't know how many troops that is, maybe what, 1,500 or 2,000, I don't know. They had their sector that they did help with the peacekeeping mission, and one of the goals of our commander, my commander, Major Dolan, was to do an oral history interview of him and ask him about his things. So we had to have a guy from the Marshall part of Germany, I don't know what it is, he was there, he was an interpreter. You can go ahead, because we didn't know nothing about Russian, he didn't know anything about English, so, but, Soloview is his last name. I can come up with that. That's the interview in progress. I'm the photographer, Major Dolan on the right, the guy from the Marshall, the interpreter.
It's like an energy.
Yeah, I don't know what this energy plant was. We don't know if it's nuclear, coal, or whatever it is, but that's, you know, you can't know everything about everything. Maybe somebody here can look at that and tell us what it is, but I can't. Had a lot of time, I had 2 cameras because I took a picture. There's one of those slide off the road dips if you don't stay on the road. There, okay, we can stop here. That's an engineer bridge. Remember I talked about it? They have this vehicle that can hydraulically put it over the gap. I think in my notes, it's 160 foot down in that hole, or 60 foot, so you want to make sure you stay on that bridge, right? And we can go. There's going to be another type of bridge in a little bit here later. The guy made it over, didn't he? Yeah. Well, this is where the Russian brigade was. We stopped, happened to be running back through that same. Okay, here's an engineer bridge that has a slit in the middle. You have to have a ground guide for that because you don't want to get your tire in the slit. You want to make sure you stay on there right. So, go ahead, Linda. There's the ground guide saying, come on, you'll make it. And this is a village, I was telling a little earlier, there's so many landmines, they could have had a landmine training place in this village. It was that bad. What happened here, we talked about snipers and things. Somebody showed up one night and fired around and got a U.S. soldier through the shoulder, and they returned some fire, but they never did figure out where this guy went to, but that's just one of the things that were happening. That's the reason they were armed and waiting. Right here, that's a landmine, and we're going to I took that at 200 yards with a telephoto lens, because we said in minefields, you don't know how many others are in place. But come on, Lynn, we can show it. And the stick on the top is what, if you had, this was put in probably when the snow was deep and you couldn't see the mine, but it's left out there in the open, and there's a lot of them left like that. And if you tip that stick on the top, it'll blow, so you don't want to touch that thing. Command Sergeant Tilley on the right. About 2 years or a year and a half after we were on this mobilization, he ended up being a command sergeant major of the command sergeant of the whole U.S. Army. He was that good. He was the top dog over in the whole world of the U.S. Army. Jack Tilley was his name, command sergeant major. I thought that was a privilege to have been elbow to elbow with him. Okay. This is a checkpoint. I think that might be a communication tower. Jack Tilley again. His job was to be the top dog, be the morale and well-being of all the soldiers and American soldiers in Bosnia. And he was well liked. Soldiers would gather around him whenever he's in their sector. So that's another, can't tell that much difference now, but that's what his job was. I think now we've had a mission and we're leaving and we're climbing up the side of a mountain with our vehicles on a convoy. And you just see how beautiful that country was. And whenever there's a flat spot somewhere, that's where somebody had a house and a barn. Okay, we're getting close to the end. This is in the upper attic of the barracks where we were, and some soldiers bring their guitars with them. And this is part of the entertainment you have when you're deployed like that. And Shane Woodall, the one I showed you earlier, he brought a guitar and he was pretty good at playing it. He just got married 6 weeks before his deployment and he wasn't too happy with that. And one guy from the Chicago, his wife was delivering a child as he was coming on mobilization. So I got his name in my deals, but we don't need to know. Collecting weapons of war. This is just one little example where they were out collecting all the weapons they could that the warring factions were using on each other. We're just about done here, Linda, I think. That guy's a brigade commander. His last name is French Fontenay or something like that. Command Sergeant Tilley on the right. Still on the right. Sad thing, soldiers, told you about those mountain things. A couple soldiers' vehicle fell off, and what this is a ceremony to send them home in a casket. I'd hate to say it that way, but that's what, and this is a Command Sergeant Major, I'm about time to quit, isn't it? He's rolling the flag up after the ceremony. And this is myself in the middle, and my commander. We rotated to Tazar Air Base Hungary for the second half of our deployment. And this is taken maybe the 28th of March, and I think we went up there about the end of March. So that's where I spent the second half of my Bosnia deployment. I think that's it, isn't it, Linda? Yeah, Kansas flag, and we're there. And the fourth part of this thing was if there's any questions, any burning questions. Yes, ma'am.
I have to worry about the children with bombs.
Are they in danger too from all the stuff?
No, because I know in Vietnam.
Let me tell you, why don't you say something here and then everybody can hear what your question is, ma'am.
I had a friend that was in Vietnam and they made friends with the children.
Yes.
But then one day the little girl ran into the barracks and said something about balls. Whether she thought she was throwing a ball or whether she wasn't, but they had to kill her because it was a grenade. And this was really bothering this guy because he had a 10-year-old girl at home.
What she just said, I guess you heard that they end up annihilating a little girl that had a grenade that didn't know what it was.
Well, we don't know.
We don't know because she didn't live through it. Yeah, anyway, that was her comment. And can't tell you anything else, but the kids are just as damaged as, I told you about Srebrenica. The boys that were 12 years old or older got rounded up in that roundup and put out in the woods and executed. And that was the biggest single atrocity that was performed in Bosnia. Thank you.
Listening to Dennis makes you wonder what is the situations now in Israel and, just flew out of my head. Ukraine, thank you. I think it speaks well to what Jean said earlier, is it's better to have the fighting on someone else's land than on our land. And maybe it's easy to criticize some of the military operations that our country is put into, but as we listen to Dennis, maybe there's another side to that. At this time, our vocalist, another one, Linda Rodenkamp, will lead us in a couple songs, and maybe Lily, you can come up and help her.
Yeah, there we go. If you would turn your program over to the back, I'm going to read the first part, and this song was made famous by Kate Smith. Irving Berlin wrote it.
The little prayer before sometimes it gets forgotten, so I'm gonna read it. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. Please join me with singing this. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. My home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. We'll keep going. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for and her ways of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Let's catch our breath. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. My native country be land of the noble free, thy name I love. I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and templed hills, my heart with rapture fills like that above. Thank you.
Let's give Dennis a round of applause. I kind of forgot that, and also Linda now. And can you help me with these?
I can.
Janie Cottrell, you want to come up here and help us? We are going to present some lap quilts to some of our veterans. These come from a group called Crafting for Others, and the three of us are part of that group. And we get together and we sew. The first person I'd like to recognize is Scott Cottrell. You can take his hand. And Scott, I'm going to ask you to say just a few words again.
A few words? Oh, yeah. So yeah, with Desert Storm when I was in 88, 92, it seems like forever ago. So that's why I love hearing these stories. That was excellent. Thank you for that. Right now, I actually work for the Coast Guard. My wife and I do. You don't know this, but there's actually a Coast Guard in Kansas. It's located in Topeka, Kansas. The Pay and Personnel Center was in Maryland in 1983, and for security reasons, they moved that to the middle of the country and just happened to end up in Topeka, Kansas, and it's been here ever since. So thank you all for this. This was great. Thank you guys for this. That's outstanding. And glad to have all the veterans here. Thank you very much, Debbie. Oh, awesome. All right. I love it.
So all of you know, we put what's known as a sleeve on the back of these, so if they don't want to use them as a lap quilt, they can hang them on the wall. Just a little extra little thing we've added to the quilts.
Thanks, buddy.
I don't think you're ever too young for a lap quilt. Tom Tessendorf. And Tom, I'll have you say a few words.
Well, thank you. I'm a registered nurse, and I started out at Army Reserves, and then Nebraska Army Guard, and then Kansas National Guard. I spent 15 months in Djibouti, Africa, with a battalion that was over there doing force protection for the Camp Lemonnier. When I got into the reserve component, I never thought I would stay in long enough to retire, but it was the smartest thing I ever did. So now that I'm retired, I'm just happy to be home. Thank you.
Thank you. And sometimes there's the tradition in your family that the next generation continues that military service. And this is true in Tom's case. And we have his daughter, Ellie Tessendorf Reese. So Ellie?
I wasn't expecting this. I would have got dressed up, but I joined later in life. I joined at 29, which gave me a benefit. It was the smartest thing I did for my kids, and it allowed me to meet my husband. I didn't accomplish everything I wanted to in the Army, and I would go back today if I could.
And with that, we would like her husband, Melvin, to come up.
I'd like to say thank you. I appreciate being in 26 years. It helped me find my wife. It helped me find what I want to do once I get out of the military, because I came from Norfolk, Virginia. My dad was retired Navy, so he was kind of mad that I went Army, not Navy. And he said, why? And I was like, because I didn't want to be on a ship throwing up all the time. But I learned a lot from the Army. I met great soldiers, great sergeant majors and officers, and I will continue that path to pass on what knowledge I have for the next generation.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Brian Bates was here earlier. He is a Vietnam veteran, and as he listened to Dennis, there were things that were bothering him a little bit, and so he asked to be excused and leave, but his friend Annette Klein will come up here and accept that for him and make sure that it is taken to him today. So let's give Brian. Let's say anything.
I'll say something. I've known Ryan for years and years, and we just kind of reconnected here this last week, and Debbie and I asked him on our way back from Hayes. And when I got here, I said, are you going to be okay to be here? And he said, I think so. And the more more Dennis went into it, and I'm glad that he left when he did, because some of the pictures, I think, would have really, really bothered him. So anyway, I think he's quite a guy, and I think he's been through a lot that we don't realize, maybe some of us don't realize, and so anyway, I think he's very appreciative, and he said that the large number of people in one place really kind of bothered him too. So I learned a lot about him today, and I think he'll appreciate this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And the last quilt that we have goes to Dennis Droge. So Dennis?
Thank you.
I've already talked for 30 minutes. I don't think you need to. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dennis. How many of you are a little bit afraid? Here we go again. Dennis is one of our newest volunteers here at the museum. We certainly appreciate him. Deb Manuel, where are you at, Debbie? Would you bring up the picture back there, please? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna stand here and hold it. Those of you that have, especially students, know that when we give a tour, we have different people in different sections of the museum that explain those areas. And of course, we're training people all the time, and sometimes as we train, we can't possibly know everything. Well, we've had one volunteer, well, he's one of the founding fathers of the museum, the Historical Society, who has been very, very consistent with us in giving the information and the tour of our military exhibit. And it's become more difficult for him to do that at this time. And so we have a couple in training. One is Dennis, and he doesn't know near what this volunteer knows yet, but he'll get there. And then we have Dale Renfro, who wasn't able to be here today, that kind of does a little bit. And I just recruited Gene Gilsdorf, unbeknownst to him today. So it's going to take 3 people to fill the shoes and the knowledge and the dedication of this volunteer. At this time, I'd like Dale Colderman to come up. We would like to present Dale Colderman with this card of appreciation, but also this picture. And you know how things fall together. I hope some of you grow up to work in a museum because things fall together. This particular cross-stitch happened to come into the garage sale. And for those of you that know about our garage sales, you never know what we're going to get. And I've been thinking about Dale for a long time, and there, among 30 cross-stitched panels, was this. And I thought, that was meant for Dale. And so we had it framed, and with Dale, we want to thank you for your time and your dedication to this museum and to the military exhibit of this area, and for sharing the knowledge so many years with so many of us. Thank you.
I just wanted to, it had a lot of enjoyment. I hadn't been back for quite a while, and I hadn't been feeling very good. And so I'm glad I had the chance to come back again.
Let's give Dale a round of applause, and if you feel like standing, please do that. We've learned a lot from Dale around here. And he's fixed a lot of things over his years. The Historical Society was founded in 1975, if that gives you an idea of how long Dale has been trundling around here, taking care of all kinds of things for us. He's also been on our building committee, and we appreciate him for that. Just a few announcements. That took care of that. We will be retiring the colors from in here, but we have a second retirement. The Omega area veterans retire the flag, the museum flag, for the season. And so those of you that feel like you can, will join us at the flagpole, and they will bring the flag down for us out there. That will be followed with refreshments. For those of you that don't want to walk across our grounds, and I'll warn you, it's not the most even place in the world. I can't say we've ever had any landmines out there, but I tell you what, it's pretty rough in some spots. So if you choose not to go down there, we certainly will understand that. I want to thank all the students who came today, and I want to thank your teacher for encouraging you to do that. And if you need something signed, Linda Rodenkamp and I'll both be very welcome to sign that. I think there's still some programs back there if you need one of those. There's some books and a flag back there on a shelf back there. They're free if anybody wants those books. It's pretty heavy plowing reading, though. It's kind of political stuff. I want to thank all the refreshment people, and I'm not sure who all you are, because we have a ton of refreshments in there. So I hope all of you will stay for that. We are in the process of building. Linda Rodenkamp is our building chair. You see our huge concrete platform out there, and hopefully by the end of the year, we may have a we are in the process. We will have more cement by the end of the year. We're hoping that the exterior structure will go up fairly soon into the new year.
Up into March.
We find that the contractors, well, first of all, our funding creates a deadline for us. And then our contractors, you know, if we can't put them to work tomorrow, they're going to go find somebody else to work for. And so we have to work with the contractors on that. But do take some time, and our building plans are up over in the other building if you want to look at those. I want to encourage you all to go to the St. Paul's Lutheran Church turkey supper tonight. It's now at the community center, and I think they start at 4 o'clock. So you can have your dessert here and then go down there and eat your meat. Anyone have anything else that you would like to share? I want to thank all of you. This was a huge crowd compared to what we were expecting. It's a beautiful day out, so I thank you all for coming. With that, we will have the Onega area veterans come up and retire the colors from here, and then we'll go down to our flag for those of you that would like to do that.
Arms. Retrieve the colors.
I'm going to interrupt you just a minute. I know this isn't kosher. But Joe would like to have all the Culverman kids come up and get a picture with Dale. Okay?